Last week's Switch 2 sales numbers dropped faster than a turd the morning after Taco Bell because according to new insider info, weekly sales of the Switch 2 dropped over 50% week over week. And of course we're going to jump into the data here in just a minute, but I guess the Switch 2 is just not going to be a money printer forever after all. So did the hype for the Switch 2 wear off quicker than a Mario Party friendship? Maybe, but probably not, because there's obviously something else going on here, as there always is, right? There's always a catch, so stick around. We're gonna dive deep into the truth behind this Switch 2's massive drop in sales last week in Japan. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. All right, let's jump right in here and take a look at the data. So here we have the Famitsu sales for July 7th through July 13th 2025 in Japan. Okay, this is actual like weekly sales data that we get out of Japan, which we don't get out of any other country, which is annoying. We don't actually know how much this is selling in like the United States, for example, and in Europe, but we do have the Japan numbers. Okay, and here we can see what the sales data was for last week. Right now I'm recording this on the 17th. Today is actually Donkey Kong Bonanza launch day. I just did a 3.5 hour live stream over on the channel. If you guys want to see me jump into Donkey Kong Bonanza, I also made a video recently talking about whether or not you should get this game, and honestly, TLDR, I think it's a 9 out of 10. I'm having a blast. It's truly like a genuinely just fun experience. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. Okay, last week's sales data shows the Switch 2 selling 71,885 units in Japan for the week. This is the first time since the Switch 2 launch that we've seen it drop below 100,000 units in any given week. And what's even more interesting here is comparing it to the previous week. So the week prior, we see that it sold 161,000 units. So that is a 55% drop week over week, which is the biggest drop that we have seen in the Switch 2 sales since launch out of Japan. Now if we come over here to VG charts, we can see some hardware estimates for the entirety of the Switch 2's launch, and what we can see here is for June of 2025 we see 1.7 million sales for the hardware in Japan, right? But what's interesting is if we watch it week over week, okay, so by June 7th, so this is like the first 3 days of sales, right? We have 1.1 million Switch 2s sold in Japan. We all know that this was the fastest selling console launch of all time. I keep getting called a Nintendo fanboy for saying that, and I don't know why. That is just objectively the numbers. I'm sorry that that hurts your feelings. I've made many videos praising the Switch 2, and I've made a few videos criticizing the Switch 2 and talking about its downfall, this being one of them. So I guess if I have the Nintendo fanboys and the Nintendo haters in my comment section complaining about my takes, then that can only mean one thing. That means I'm actually right. If you piss off both sides, that means you're actually just nuanced and you're just fact driven. So I guess I'll take it. But let's take a look at the next week sales. Okay, the June 14th sales, we have 168,000. The following week 149,000. The following week another 169,000, and then again we have the July 5th sales 132,000. As you can see, that is a little bit different than what we have here from the previous week on nintendoeverything.com, because this is mostly estimates on VG charts. So either way, it's about a 50% drop last week compared to the week prior. Okay, and again, as you can see, like that's a pretty big drop. It's not like it's been, you know, it goes down to 100, then it goes up to 150, and then down to 130, and then up to 155. Like no, it's been in a pretty stable range for the past few weeks, and then all of a sudden it drops down to 71,000. So a lot of people are looking at this and saying, okay, well, it's been over a month and that's it, the hype's over, like the Switch 2 is done, like that was it, all the fanboys got it, all the early adopters got their hands on it, all the scalpers are done scalping, they realize they can't make money off of it, and that's all she wrote, right? Like the Switch 2 is, you know, it's the downward spiral has begun for the Switch 2. That is the narrative that is being painted here, and that could be true. It could be true, right? I mean, like, let's be real, we don't know what's actually going to happen, right? But I think that the answer here is pretty obvious. Okay, first of all, it's possible, now I don't know if this is actually true, and maybe this is some tinfoil hat going on, right? But if we're looking at the July 7th to the July 13th data, this is the week prior to Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? And this is the first major game launch of the Switch 2, right? The Switch 2 launch had Mario Kart World, but that is a pack-in game. 80 something percent of people got that as a pack-in game. We already discussed that on the channel, right? So that was not a game launch to be anticipating, right? You're anticipating the system, and Mario Kart World comes with it. This is the first standalone game launch, and there's been a lot of hype around Donkey Kong Bonanza because of that, right? I think if Donkey Kong Bonanza launched alongside Mario Kart World, I think that a lot of people would have said it was a great game in its own right, but it might have been overshadowed by Mario Kart World, and maybe it wouldn't have had its proper time in the spotlight. And I think that Nintendo wanted Donkey Kong Bonanza to have its moment in the spotlight because they put a lot of work into this game, and honestly the reviews are really good for Donkey Kong Bonanza. You can check Metacritic and OpenCritic. I posted an entire video about that, check it out on the channel, but the reviews are glowing, right? I think IGN gave it a 10 out of 10. I think that's BS. I don't think the game is a 10 out of 10, but I personally am enjoying the game more than I've enjoyed Mario Odyssey, and that's mainly because I have a big problem with open world games. Sometimes when there's just a big open world and the objectives are a little bit loose, I get too distracted. I go off on side missions, side tangents, and then I lose my motivation because I don't really remember what's happening in the game. This game is a bit more, you know, it's still an open world thing. You can do whatever you want, but you're kind of like on different like sub layers of the world, right? And so it's a bit more divided in that way, and I really appreciate that aspect for it. So I personally am having a blast with Donkey Kong Bonanza. Like I said, I think it's a 9 out of 10, and I think that Nintendo wanted it to have its time in the spotlight, and so I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume that perhaps Nintendo just sandbagged some of their consoles for a week, so that way they have more consoles to sell on the week that Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out, right? Now the only way we're going to know that is when we get the sales data for this week, and if that theory is true, then what we should expect is that the sales figures for the Switch 2 should be higher this week than they were even the week prior, right? It should be at least 150,000 160,000 for this week for Donkey Kong Bonanza. So we'll have to wait and see when that data actually comes out to see if that actually was the case, or if sales are actually just drying up at this point, right? So again, I think if they want hype around Donkey Kong Bonanza and customers go into the stores and they discover that the console is sold out, which has been a problem in Japan. We already talked about on the channel how the CEO of Nintendo had to answer a question directly to shareholders who were concerned about the massive demand for the console and how they were unable to meet the supply for that demand in Japan, right? And also in other countries around the world, but mainly in Japan he was addressing that. And so if we are seeing some supply issues in Japan, I mean that's coming from the horse's mouth, right? Like that's coming right from Nintendo. If that is true, then I can understand their strategy of wanting to hold back some units on one week so that way they're available for the week where their first biggest game launch hits the shelves, right? I think that's completely logical. But the real truth, okay, and this is the real reason why the Switch 2 sales are slowing down, and they're going to continue slowing down until holiday season. Let's just be real, that's going to be the case, right? And you're gonna see lots of YouTubers and, you know, people posting on Twitter, posting on r/gaming. They're gonna be like, oh my god, finally the Switch 2's hype is over, the console's dead, we did it, everybody, it's the Wii U all over again. Even though people keep saying the Wii U had a fantastic launch. What, buddy, what world did you live in? The Wii U launch was horrible. It was worse than the Wii launch. Hello? Anyway, that's not the point of the video. Here's the real truth as to why the Switch 2 sales are going to keep declining until holiday, okay? The answer is the games. Are you kidding me? Who could have possibly guessed it? Who could have possibly guessed the answer was the games when we're talking about video game consoles? What are the odds of that, ladies and gentlemen? Let's take a look at the top selling games for the Switch 1. Okay, we're just going to breeze through this for a little bit. All right, we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe being the best selling Switch 1 game. Fantastic. We have Animal Crossing, Smash Ultimate, Zelda, that's Breath of the Wild. We have Odyssey, Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Tears of the Kingdom. And we can go through here and we can look at some pretty familiar names, right? We can see a lot of it. We see a lot of Pokemon, we see a lot of Mario titles, see a little Stardew Valley, a couple of third-party games here as well. And as you go through here, you start to notice something really interesting. Okay, if you take a look at the top, let's just say top 50, we could probably go even farther than that, but let's look at the top 50 best-selling games. Okay, games that sold, let's say 2.5 million copies or more. Okay, the top 50 best-selling games, let's look at which of those games have a sequel on the console that is a sequel, right? And the way that I know that the Switch 2 is a sequel to the Switch 1 is because there's a big 2 on the back. So that it's literally labeled. This right here means sequel, right? This is the follow-up console. It's the number 2. It's the next one, right? That's how you watch movies. You watch the original, then you watch the second one with the 2 on it, right? So okay, the follow-up console, which of these best-selling titles has a follow-up on the console? Well, okay, we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We see Mario Kart World as the follow-up, and that game's been pretty popular, right? So that's fantastic. What other games do we have? Well, we've got Donkey Kong Bonanza. So let's see where's Donkey Kong on here? Well, we didn't really get like a real full Donkey Kong game for the Switch. We have Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze coming in at number 32. Okay, so that's in the top 50. So we've got 2 games in the top 50 that have proper sequels on the Switch 2. Okay, and that's the answer. It's really that boring. Like, it's really that simple, and I don't understand why. I'm probably gonna get hate for this video. Honestly, it's gonna be funny. I'm gonna get hate from the Switch lovers and the Switch haters on this video. I'm gonna get hate from both. I already know what's gonna happen. Why? Because my take here is nuanced, and nothing is more unpopular on the internet than having a grounded take in reality based on facts and data and just the way the world works. Okay, so if you have a console, the Switch 2, it's the most expensive, well, not in terms of buying power, but if we're talking about just raw numbers, right, it is the most expensive console Nintendo's ever released. Okay, that's just a fact. All right, now, is $450 too much for a console? No. The PS3 was $600 when it launched. That is a perfectly industry standard price for a console, but it is the most expensive Nintendo console, and so the Nintendo haters have their panties in a bunch over that. Okay, but we've got a brand new console launch, and when you look at the top 50 games for its predecessor, only 2 of them have a proper sequel. That's it, right? And so when you think about like, okay, well, one of those is the best-selling game for the console, which is fantastic, and I think that that is probably what fueled a lot of the early hype sales for the Switch 2. Mario Kart World hype was through the roof, right? And rightfully so. It's a great game. Same with Donkey Kong Bonanza. But why would Nintendo fans at large be coming out in droves to continuously pump up the sales of the Switch 2 as a console when they're not pumping out more games, right? And not to say they won't, they will. There are more games coming, right? We already know that Metroid is coming. That's going to be on the Switch 1, so that might not be a huge Switch 2 seller, but I think people who want the definitive version, they're probably going to get their hands on a Switch 2. I think Pokemon Legends ZA, again, that's going to be on the Switch 1, so is that going to move some Switch 2 units? Maybe, right? Again, it's going to be the definitive version. It's going to run better on that hardware, and it's a bigger screen, so if you're going to play portable, like, you might want to play there, so that might move some units, right? But we're not going to really see Switch 2 sales crank up again until, first of all, holiday is going to come, and we're going to see a lot of sales then, and by that time we'll have a bigger library for the Switch 2, right? And then again, we're not going to see more Switch 2 sales start to crank up until we see some sequels to some of the heavy hitters on the Switch 1, right? Animal Crossing New Horizons. There's rumors that we're going to be hearing a little bit more about the next Animal Crossing by the end of this month. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is the sort of leak that the July Nintendo Direct could be featuring a little bit of a hint at Animal Crossing. Smash Bros, I already made an entire video talking about Smash Bros for the Switch 2. We're either going to get a Smash Ultimate Deluxe version, or you're going to have to wait until 2027, probably holiday of 27, for a full new Smash Bros game. So okay, we can't count on that. A whole new Zelda game, I think we're probably a little bit ways away on that one as well, because, you know, Tears of the Kingdom is only 2 years old, and we have the definitive versions on the Switch 2. So okay, we're looking for, well, what are we looking for? A 3D Mario game, a true Pokemon entry, right? And ZA doesn't count. That game's not going to be good. Maybe a new 2D Mario game as well. A Switch 2 Sports, maybe that could happen. Pokemon remake would be fantastic as long as they do it right. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were hot garbage. A new Splatoon game would be great. A new Mario Party would be great, right? But the truth is, like, we are probably a ways away from some of these big titles launching on the Switch 2, and so the Switch 2 is going to have to rely on some of these more mid-tier games and also some third-party releases that really move units, right? And until we start seeing a lot of these top 50 games get proper sequels on the Switch 2, you're not going to see a huge spike and like sustained demand for the console, because the games are what move the units. And I can't believe I even have to say this, right? I can't believe that this is even is possibly seen as a controversial take, right? The sales for the Switch 2 are going to decline until there's a demand for the games. There's nothing you could do with the console until there's games on it, right? So if you didn't want Mario Kart and you don't want Donkey Kong Bonanza, you're not going to buy the Switch 2. And it's not because it's overpriced. It's not because of game key cards. It's not because this, that, or the other thing. It's not because they shut down a piracy site. It's not because of the used games fiasco. None of that even matters, right? The only thing that matters to casual video game enjoyers is, are there games that I can't get anywhere else on that console? And that's it. Open and shut case, right? I know plenty of people in my life that think the Switch 2 is super appealing and as a console looks fantastic, but they didn't buy one because there's not any games for it, right? There's all this internet drama and all this, you know, hype and this backlash and this and that and the other thing, and every other day the Switch is trending for this thing or that thing or the game key cards or whatever. And the truth is that normal people check in every 2-3 weeks. They're like, oh, no new games yet. Okay, okay, all right, I guess I'll check back, right? That's it. That is it. Normal people are at work. They're not thinking about Nintendo on a daily basis. Nobody gives a shit, right? Like this is such a small thing in the grand scheme of things. What Nintendo's doing, nobody's thinking about what Nintendo's doing. No one cares, right? They're like, oh, is there a new game out? No. Okay, well, I'll wait till there's a new one. Like, it's really that simple, right? And that's the truth. And so what I suspect is going to happen is we will probably see a bump in sales for Switch 2 units for Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then sales are going to continue to decline throughout the rest of the year until holiday comes around, or until we see some more titles coming out for the Switch 2. That's really it. That is an open and shut case, right? Now, the other thing I want to touch on here, and I think this is another thing that a lot of people have been talking about with the Switch 2, it's the game key cards, right? And people are saying, oh, the game key cards are so bad, it's killing the system, it's truly killing the system, right? And they're looking at this new news that comes out from Sega. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, the frequently asked questions posted on July 16th. Okay, when is the Switch 2 version coming out? Switch 2 digital will launch holiday 25 and physical will launch early 26. Standard edition is going to cost $70. Digital deluxe will be $90. Will the game be on the cartridge? The physical version will feature the full base game on a 64GB cartridge, right? So the game key card haters saw this and took it as a massive W, right? They saw this and said, game key cards are dead. We did it. We won. We told you so. Everyone hates game key cards, and this is proof, right? Because up until now, Sega has released multiple games on the Switch 2, and all of them have been game key cards, right? And so everyone took this as a big W. Game key cards are trash. They're gone. They're failing already. They failed so hard. Oh my God, lol. Everyone knew this would happen. Yada, 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 right? And maybe that's true, right? Like maybe Sega saw the backlash online and they were like, hey, people don't like the game key cards. Let's do something else, right? But the truth is that this is a $70 game and the game key cards were $50, right? So okay, it's $20 more than the game key cards, and so the full game is on the cartridge. And also, this is a new game launch, right? We can't forget that like Sonic X Shadow Generations was not a new game launch. That game has been out. I have it on the PS5, right? Yakuza 0, mega old game, also made by Sega, right? Of course it's on a game key card, and of course it's a little bit cheaper, right? So I think you really got to be more nuanced with this to really understand the true story of what's going on here. You have to understand that like this is a brand new game that's launching. Yes, it's fully on cartridge for more money, so you're paying for it, right? It's not like this was also $50 on a 64GB cartridge, right? So I think a lot of people see this, they look at the backlash for the game key cards, and then they look at the declining sales, and they start to paint this narrative that like, oh my God, the Switch 2 finally all of our Twitter posting is finally damaging the reputation of Nintendo. Finally people are stopping buying the console, all because of our Twitter fingers, right? It's like, no dude, there's just not any games out. Like the initial hype was there, sure, the hype is dying down. Why? Because no new games came out. And if Switch 2 sales continue to decline this week for Donkey Kong Bonanza, then yeah, for sure there's hype dying for sure. Like, I mean, this is a big release. It should drive console sales 100%. This is the first 3D Donkey Kong game since Donkey Kong 64. It's been over what, 25 years since then. So this should move units, and if it doesn't, Nintendo has a problem, right? But to paint this whole narrative of like, oh, the hype is dead, it's because of game key cards, it's because this, that, and the other thing, it's like, nope, there's just no games for it, right? There's just no games for it. That's my analysis. Now again, in a week or two, we're going to look back on the sales and we can say, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, the hype really died, right? Or maybe we'll look and say, oh wow, Donkey Kong Bonanza really revived some hype for the Switch 2. People are getting more excited about the console again. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I just wanted to make this video to kind of share with you guys my thoughts and opinions on what is clearly a big drop in sales. I mean, there's no denying it. 55% week over week is the biggest single week over week drop we've seen since launch, right? Obviously launch weekend doesn't count. That was like 1 million units or whatever in Japan. Like that's going to be a big launch, right? So I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to touch on the game key card thing. And by the way, I don't want this to come off as me defending game key cards, right? I intentionally bought Sonic X Shadow Generations on the PS5 because I didn't want a game key card on my Switch 2, straight up, right? Now the reason I got Donkey Kong Bonanza, the game's on the card. So like I'm with you guys, right? I don't like game key cards 100%. I put my money where my mouth is. But two things can be true at the same time. I can also recognize that the average consumer does not care if the game is on the cartridge. I'm sorry to tell you, and the data for that is abundantly clear, right? Look at the massive explosion in digital sales over the last decade. People don't care about buying digitally. They simply don't. They will buy digitally. They don't mind. It is what it is. There's a convenience factor there. They don't have to leave the house. They can just download it from their home. That's it, right? The casual consumer does not mind if their games are digital, right? Some people do. I'm not saying that's you, right? Clearly I'm one of them. I like physical media, right? but the average consumer doesn't really care that much. So I'm not here to defend game key cards. I'm not here to say this, that, or the other thing. I'm just saying that like the average consumer doesn't really care if this is on a cartridge or not, right? This answer is for the niche community that like you and me. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. I hate game key cards as well, even though I can understand that they're probably not going to go anywhere. Like I mean, I hope they go away, but I don't expect them to. Let's be real. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you seeing this drop off in Switch 2 sales and saying, wow, maybe the Switch 2 really is failing? Like, let me know down there. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Or do you think that this is sort of just the logical outcome of the week prior to a big game launch and just the fact that, I mean, there's really nothing else. Why would you buy a Switch 2 now? Like, everyone who wanted a Switch 2 at launch already has one, right? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this big drop in sales, because it is objectively a big drop in sales. And while you're down there, drop a thumbs up in the video. It helps out the channel a ton. It helps get this video out to the YouTube algorithm so other Nintendo fanboys or haters can find it and enjoy it. And consider subscribing while you're down there and clicking the bell. We just recently broke 3,000 subs, which is actually really, really awesome for the small second channel. So thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.